So what are your thoughts on the Chinese ae86 shells coming out of China, the Alibaba ones?
I don't know yet. I mean, I'd have to see it, but you've obviously seen they're reproducing the Ford Escort Mark II for rally cars and stuff. I guess they were so popular that, I mean, they're reprinting their chassis, right? And for China to tool up for the dyes to do that, that's a massive investment. Unless, who would want to do that unless they thought there was some sort of a market for it, right? And everyone thinks, oh, it's made in China, it's rubbish. Not necessarily. Like, you get what you pay for, right? Like,
we have to wait and see, though. That, like you said,
100%. Yeah. So if you go to China and you look at Snap-on torches made in China, look at SP tools made in China. You go and buy the cheapest fucking torch off eBay made in China. So there's all these levels of quality you can get from China. It's just how much do you want to pay?
Yes.
And what's the chassis worth? Do we know what it's worth?
They're selling now, I think it might be US, 8 to 9 grand. I don't know what the difference in, maybe it's whether it got panels on it or something. Like, maybe if you've got, I don't know.
Maybe if you buy more of them, they get cheaper. Obviously, that'll be the case, but
it did say you need to buy minimum of 5.
Minimum 5, right? Okay. So there's someone who said he's already got a couple on the way, but if your minimum order quantity was 5, I don't know how he's managed to score that deal.
Well, a lot of people online are talking about doing group buys, getting people together. Yeah. Also, there's a guy in Melbourne. He orders a lot of like ae86 parts in, and that's his business. Yeah. Craig from JDM. Just JDM. Is it just?
No, just JDM. I know the one. I think it's just JDM. Yeah, something like that.
And he like a lot of these parts that are he'll wholesale them and he'll sell them. So like instead of you having to wait, the guy's here in Sydney. So I think there's going to be people that like provide that service. Yeah. The big question is, what's the quality going to be like? Is it going to be up to the same? Like, as far as I can see, the photos that are online, it looks like that might be the original car they're getting like the 3D scanning from, because it has all the little dots
data dots. Yeah, the data dots for the 3D scan.
So whether or not that's the actual finished product, or if it's going to come out black, or it's going to, who knows? Yeah. But the photos, if that is the actual product, it looks pretty spot on as far as I can see. Looking at the stamp panels, because I've been all through my car. Yeah. And it matches up as far as I can tell, like all the different ripples and the different, the reinforcement stamping and shit.
So I guess we've got to address one of the things, right? Like, we've got to address a few things here. One, they don't come with VIN numbers issued. Two, they're a modern production chassis.
Do you know that? Like, they might, like a lot of kit cars come with VIN numbers.
So this is the thing, like, from what country? Like, maybe, okay, so going back to that from another direction, it's a modern production chassis that doesn't meet any of today's crash standards. So it can't be registered. It's impossible because it doesn't conform to modern day standards. It's new, right?
For Australia.
But for any country,
how does it work with like the other kit cars when you buy like the old Corvettes? Like it's not a standard Corvette, it's a kit car, but you see them driving around Australia all the time.
So my missus has that kit car, right? Yeah. That's a Ford Mark II Escort chassis. So they're using an original chassis with a fiberglass body on it, and a Nissan engine and a Ford diff, and it's all a bit of a mix match. When you get hot rods, right? Like the guy in Queensland who does Auto Perfection or whatever his name is.
I'm not sure who it is. Yeah.
The guy who will be going up against in drag challenge with the Honda powered Toyota. Okay. He does kit cars, right? And one of the things he's working on now is this fiberglass body Model T Ford, I think it is, Model A Model T Ford bucket, but it's a fiberglass body, but their chassis rails are like 1930s original chassis rails. So they have a printed VIN number on them, and that's the base that you start off, right? But that 1930s chassis, you cannot just build that from scratch and then hope to achieve some sort of like engineering standard. Maybe you can go to an engineer and they'd say, yeah, I'll sign off on this, and then you can get, because I know you can get issued engine numbers. Like if you've got an engine that doesn't have engine numbers on it, you can go to the cops or whoever the governing body is, and you can actually get issued VIN engine numbers. I wonder if it's the same for VIN numbers. This is something that you'd have to do, but like you say, if you're getting issued numbers, it doesn't conform to the standards of today's crash safety standards. So I think it's going to be like the Mark II Escorts, where they're like a rally car. Like you buy them and it's an off-road use only.
There's so many directions, so many different paths that people can take.
100%.
So, like if you've got old shell that's trash,
Yeah.
Or like if you even buy a half.
Well, let's just talk about the legalities of that, right?
It's
allowed,
illegal. Yeah,
you can't do that. You can't do rebirthing engine numbers, VIN number swaps.
True.
Not to say that people won't do it.
That's what I was about to say. Like, okay, it's illegal. Most, like, a lot of people don't care. They will do it. They don't care.
We don't condone that sort of activity. Like, rebirthing vehicles is highly illegal and don't recommend doing it.
So that's going to be, I think, that might become an issue where it's like, if you are in the market to buy an 86, if it's too good to be true, it might be in the future because it might be a rebirthed vehicle. So that might be something that becomes a problem in the future. But the big question I think that we need to address is what's going to happen to 86 prices? Are they going to crash? Are they going to crash now?
I don't think so.
Because people are like, as of recently, the economy's been struggling, so people haven't been buying as much. But the last 86 shells, like they were Hatch 11 ADM 86 shells that I've seen for sale, people were asking 10 grand for cars that weren't even there anymore. Yeah. You could put your hand through the panel where it's been rusted, and it was just nothing left. I remember just looking at them, just thinking like, it's going to cost so much to bring that car back to life.
Yeah.
What do you like? How do you even start? Where do you even start? But this is like, if you bought one of these cars, you can get all the bits that are missing.
Yeah.
And put it onto your car.
For sure. So the other thing I've seen a guy last night. I was fighting the temptation not to, remortgage the house and buy a Sprinter, but it was $45,000, Japanese import, boot back, and it was white. It was like Stu Budd's car.
Yeah.
That beautiful 11 bootback Sprinter.
You
45 grand. Engine, no rust. It was clean as. Really nice interior. Had the original 4A GE in it. Why wouldn't if someone's asking $10,000 for a rusted out Australian Sprinter?
Why wouldn't you buy one that's done?
Why wouldn't yes, it is 3.5 or 4 times the cost, but 4 times the cost with no work input. You just buy the car and it's done.
The thing is, like with these kit cars as well, you can buy the shell and it's a rust-free shell.
Yeah.
But that's all you've got. You have to work out the engine. You have to work out the interior. Like, fair enough, if you want to build a track car, it's a perfect base for a track car because you're going to tube chassis it. You're going to put whatever engine you want.
You put a cage straight in it. You seam weld the chassis whilst it's literally there, ready to be seam welded.
It's good to go, and there's no rust repairs. So that's where it really makes sense to me. If I wanted to do a dedicated track car, I'd say this looks like a really good option as long as the quality's there.
Yeah.
But like, is it going to make the current 86s lose value? I don't think so. If it does, it doesn't really matter to me either because it's like I'm not selling mine anyway.
You've got 5 of them.
Don't tell anyone that. But like, I'm not selling mine anyway. So whether the price goes up, down, it makes no difference to me. So like, I'm not on either side. I'm kind of neutral about it. But realistically, I think you're not gonna remake an 86 from the 80s. There is what there is.
Yeah.
And it's just supply and demand. If you want at a genuine ae86, you're gonna have to spend the money.
Yeah.
I don't think the prices will go down. If they do, I'd be surprised.
I'm in the same boat because I look at the Ford Mark II Escorts, and if you've got an original Ford Mark II Escort with VIN numbers attached, and it's in a restored condition, or if it's a hotted up version of the car, they're still retaining value even though they're reproducing the whole entire chassis and body panels and all that.
The Mustangs have been doing the same thing
forever, right?
It used to be like a car that had nothing left but some rusty little VIN, and then paperwork, and people would buy all the parts, reproduction, and rebuild a fucking brand new car.
And the Mustangs are still expensive.
It's very expensive
because consider the labour cost that it's going to take to get that Mustang back to where it needs to be a for sale vehicle. It's the same amount of work. I mean, whether you find a good quality one that's already done, or whether you buy one for cheap and then you actually have to rebuild most of the car to get it back to where it is. And then this takes it back to where you talk about like original matching number engines and VIN numbers. Those engine numbers came in this VIN car.
People go crazy for original paint too.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I don't really get that, but
you don't care. It's all about that. I think that when you talk like that area of the market, they're talking about the fact that the car being in its original paint and being a high quality in original paint, it's like the thing's never been driven. You know, like it's low Ks.
It comes down to how many of whatever car it is that you want still have original paint. Mate, so it's supply and demand at the end of the day. It's 100%. Just rare.
So there's the other thing now where people are talking about these barn finds, right? You know how they drag them out of a barn
and they don't clean them,
and they take them to car shows in the original dust, and it's like they call it like the original dust, and it's just like, man, it's just been in a barn.
Yeah, like who gives a shit about
it's like, who cares about the dust? But they show them off like, this is how I found it. Look, it's pristine, and it's just like, it's like, that's, I guess it's cool. Like, all you're doing is telling me a story of someone who put it in a barn 30 years ago and they haven't touched it and they just died, and then their wife sold it off and they go, I don't know what it's worth here. But someone's buying it for cheap.
People like you and I'd rather see a clean car so I can see what I'm buying.
Yeah.
And then like say, oh, there's been damage here, oh, it's been resprayed, or it's actually in good condition.
Yeah.
But look, it's actually unusual that you and I agree on something. So like we don't think the prices are going to go down, and like, you know, I know that a lot of people are hoping for it because, you know, a lot of people want 86's.
Yeah.
And this was like, you know, that little glimmer of hope that they might be able to break in and actually afford one.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you know, you're listening to you and I, it's like we're the bearers of bad news. We don't think it's going to happen. Like, you're going to have to just work harder and save more money. If you haven't got one yet, you just, you know, try and get one as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And
but we've also seen the hate that's coming from them too, right? Like, you see on these particular posts that people are putting up saying, oh, they're reproducing it on Facebook or wherever you're seeing it, and they're talking about, oh, you know, they're an absolute piece of rubbish, why would you even bother reproducing it? It's just like, well, like, there's obviously a market there. That's what we were getting at before. There's a market for these cars. Like, people want them. So
it doesn't always have to make sense. There's always a faster car. There's always a car that's got better suspension, better handling. But like, that was something that I struggled with for a very long time when I was buying my car, because I bought my car 10 years ago, and at the time you could get an S15 that was in perfect condition, running and driving, turbo, for the same price. Even Skylines, you could buy Skylines cheaper sometimes. And I just didn't make, like, I used to struggle with it. I used to be like, why am I buying this old Toyota? It makes no logical sense.
Why are you buying an older car for more money?
It got to a point where I was like debating with myself on like, what's the right thing to do for years, and I just went, this makes sense, but I don't want it. This is what I want. It got to a point where it's just like, I'm just gonna have to make a dumb decision and just do what I want. It doesn't matter what the numbers say or whatever. It's just like, do whatever it is that you want.
At some point you drive an 86, and I've driven plenty of cars. I've driven 34 GDRs, I've been in McLarens and bloody Lamborghinis, I've been in all sorts of stuff, right? And you get in a Sprinter and you drive one and you're just like, okay, that makes sense now. Like, you get in an aspirated, you know, independent throttle body Sprinter and you drive and you're just like, this makes sense. You know?
That's actually a good point too. Like, when I got my car, the story is I didn't even drive it until my brother went and picked it up for me. So the first time I drove it, I was waking up to go to work, and then like he pulled into the driveway, and it was the first time I ever drove it, and it was fucked. Welded diff, it was burning oil, it was just a standard 4A, it was shit. But like I had very low standards of it being a shit car because it's an old Toyota Corolla that's going to be shit to drive, and I was pleasantly surprised. And it's like you said, there is something to it, but yeah, you have to experience it before you. And then like it goes like to what you just said, where once you put independent throttle bodies on there, once you get good suspension, a limited slip diff, transforms the car. So
like I never thought I'd be a Honda guy, and I don't consider myself a Honda guy, and I used to see all the hate. You know, you see all the memes about like, you know, cartoon guys kissing each other, and it's just like, oh, you like Hondas? Me too. And then they kiss and stuff, and it's like, you know, they're saying that they're gay and all that sort of stuff. It's funny, and I used to laugh about that. I go, ha ha ha, Honda guys. And then I end up buying a DC2 Type R for a daily drive, right? And just to get to the station and you know, just get around, because the Nissan's showing its age, it's using too much fuel. So I went to the B18C7 or whatever it is, the DC2R engine.
You love it.
And I drove it, man, and I love that car. It's like, I look back at it every time I park it and I'm like, damn, I love this thing. And
But you like everything about the car. Like you even like the seats.
Dude, the seats, the man, you can drive in it all day. I can do 10 hours of driving in that car and you get out and you don't feel
like everything. Like even when you took me for a drive, like I like the steering wheel. And that's
everything
like something
is perfect about that car.
Yeah.
It is it doesn't even have a stereo. When I got it, it had a stereo in it, a subwoofer and amplifiers in the boot. Whoever wired it, there was a death sentence. It was bad. So I took all that out. It doesn't even have a head unit in it, and I don't care because I listen to podcasts when I drive the car. Because if I listen to music, I just speed and I get myself in trouble. So now I just
settle yourself down.
Yeah, I just settle myself and I just listen to podcasts and I cruise. And then when I take it up into the mountains for a bit of spirited driving, there's no music. It's like I want to hear every noise that car makes because it's just a symphony of amazingness.
Yeah.
And I got it. I got out of that car after driving it. I'm like, I get it. I know why the Hondas cop the flack now because these are sick. And it's like that about everything. I can drive pretty much any car and I'll get out and I'll go, I get it. I know why now people like these things.
So it's a very this is going to be my little rant about the 86 prices and stuff. So a lot of people get really upset. I've seen it multiple times on forums, on Facebook, where someone tries to sell an 86, whether it's an 86 shell, just a normal 86, and they ask what's generally the going rate, and they get ripped apart in the comment section. People saying it's way too much, you're laughing, you're kidding yourself. And I think that these 86s or old cars in general, to own an old car isn't cheap because you're constantly doing maintenance. If you have to keep the thing running, you have to do rust repairs. The longer you own it, the more money you're pouring into it. So, I understand that you can't expect to put money into a car and get that money back, but the simple idea, the simple idea of you need to maintain this car for the last 10 years. If you add up what it owes you, even though you've driven it and you've gotten use out of it and stuff, it costs money to maintain. And a lot of these cars are weekend cars for people where they just dump heaps of cash into them. And to me, that's where a lot of the value is, where it's an old car that someone has actually maintained for this long, and that's not cheap.
Yeah.
So I think that even though the prices are crazy, I don't think it's going to get any better. And on top of all that, you and I have spoken about how much we hate new cars. How they track everything. They track your speeding. They track your braking. They send all your driving information.
The data logging out of them is insanity.
The data logging gets sold to the insurance company, so you pay a higher insurance premium. These problems.
The stories of guys in the mail getting higher insurance premiums when they go to renew, and they question the insurance company. The insurance company's like, "Oh, we bought your data off the dark web or whatever, and we've seen that we consider you as a dangerous driver. Your steering inputs are erratic. Your late brake, your speed casually, and then they just go according to that. We're just going to charge you a higher rate. That's insanity."
There was two stories that I heard about people in America buying the GR Yaris and just driving to work.
Was it the GR Corolla or the Yaris when they caught on fire?
The fire.
I think it was a GR Corolla. I think the Yarises haven't had the issue.
Okay.
But
anyway, it's a new car that catches on fire, and it happened twice. In the same story that I heard, two different people had their car catch on fire when they were just driving down a highway,
casually,
going to work.
Yeah.
And it caught on fire. They couldn't get the fire out. It burnt to the ground. And then Toyota went back to them and said, at some point you broke really hard. And that could have been anything. That could have been an animal jumping in front of you on the street. You have to brake. But the thing that really ticked off the guy that was telling the story was Toyota was selling track days, free. When you buy that car, you get a free track day. So it's they're encouraging you to drive the car and race it. But then when something goes wrong with the car, they don't warrant the car because they say at some point, according to our data, you've done something erratic, and then we're not going to warrant your car. And the poor guys had their cars burnt to the ground, and they can't get any kind of compensation, and their insurance premiums are going to be going up. It's this doesn't happen with old cars.
No.
Buy an old car, and you don't have to worry about this shit.
Yeah.
So I don't think any of this stuff's going to get better. Even BMWs are trying to sell you subscriptions for heated seats and headlights.
Yeah, and the massage seats, subscription service. Everything's a subscription now.
The answer is no. I am not fucking paying a subscription for a car that I bought.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? I think although old cars right now are crazy, and you have these delusional people saying that electric cars are the future and all this shit, I think old cars are always going to have a place. And what do you reckon? it's gonna be the same thing, like a supply and demand thing. If you want to drive an old car and not be tracked and, you know, not have issues with all this other new crap that's going on, you're gonna have to buy an old car, and they're gonna become less and less available.
More scarce, more
so
scarce drives up demand, increases
and
the
then
cost.
the price goes up. So
supply and command.
If you're waiting, that's right. If you're if you're waiting for a cheap, or like for the prices to crash or something, you know, I hope for your sake it does, and then you can get a great deal or whatever. But I just don't see it happening.
I think it's like houses, like
there's always a party of people that are waiting for the crash.
Well, that's the thing, but like houses, they never really crash, right? Like they always sort of seem to plateau and then go up, plateau.
In Australia, they don't. So like they did back in the GFC in some areas. It wasn't as hectic as America.
Yeah.
So you don't really know, but it's, as a general rule, if you're in it for the long haul, you're always
going to make money. It's on the houses, right? So when people ask me, like, when is the best time to buy a house? I mean, I am no way should be giving out financial advice. I have no qualifications in that game. But personally, I own 2 homes. I have my house that I live in, I have 1 investment property, and I always tell people the best time to invest is now. What are you talking about? You got like 5 homes. You can't talk.
I don't have 5 homes.
He's got 5. Like he has 5 sprinters. Yeah. He's got 5 everything. Cut that.
Cut. Now, what were we saying?
We don't think that.
I think you said the best time is now.
Yeah.
For buying a house, I think I'd sort of say I don't think the best time to buy a house is now. I think the best time to buy a house is when you're ready.
Well, okay, so the longer you wait to be ready, the more time it has to increase in value, right? So I was speaking with Jay about this. He saved up enough money for a house, and I'm hassling him now to buy now because he was like, man, when I moved down to Wollongong, he goes, the prices were right. He goes, I just wanted a little bit more money to have when I invested. He goes, in that time that I've waited, which might be only like, what, a year or 2 that he's lived down, maybe long. A year and a half.
Yeah.
He's like, man, the prices have gone up 30%. And I'm like, man, like, why did I tell you? The time to buy is now. Like, when I was
the thing was, he was ready, but then he was also putting it off. But like,
he wanted to have a bit more money in the bank. He wanted to have a bit more safety.
But it's kind of like what I'm trying to say. It's a case-by-case basis. Like if you buy a house when you're not ready, and for some reason, like if you're going to lose your job or you're going to, you know, like, and you're not going to be able to afford the house, you're crazy.
Yes.
So the key is being ready to buy the house.
Yeah.
Or the car, or the 86, or the rolling shell. You know, the Alibaba 86 shell.
Yeah.
If you're ready, just get it.
I think those shells are going to be a really good thing for like historic rally guys who do not want to buy. Now they have an option to not buy a VIN numbered chassis that might be rusty, and they're going to fix it anyway because they're going to make it look pretty so they can rally it. But they know that they're also just going to destroy the car. And so I think what it might do is it might save a lot of VIN number cars, like, you know, original production cars, from getting destroyed in rally events.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
I think
like it's definitely a good thing.
I think it's going to curb the loss of the vehicles. That's what it'll do.
I struggled to find guards. Like when I was painting my car, I just had a rough guard. It had been in an accident. It's been straightened. It had like ripples. It was just, you know, when metal gets bent too much, it's soft, and you can only do so much with it. And I remember looking for ages, like years. I was looking for a decent Tueno guard. And for anyone that's not in Australia, we didn't get Tuenos here. All the Tuenos are the imports, and the Australian delivered 86's were all 11s. And I couldn't for the life of me find a decent Tueno guard. They were all rusty or smashed, or the fact now that I can just, you know, it's a click away, and you can get a brand new Tueno guard, paint it, and you know, it's beautiful.
High filled or whatever, you can paint that thing, make it immaculate.
That's gold.
That brings me to some of the things that I've seen. So friends of, like, guys that I've built engines for, you know, like sometimes I get to, a lot of the time I get to see that the cars they're putting them in because I'm either tuning them or I'm, you know, like I'm doing work with them on the car. One of the things that I've found is you've got I see the car and I'm like looking at it in person. I'm like, man, where'd you get like the quad headlight front end? And they go, I bought it from Malaysia. And I'm like, oh, okay, where'd you get the bonnet? Because this isn't a KE70 bonnet. This is like the different bonnet. Doesn't have the seam in the center for the square headlight Corolla. So then they go, oh, that's all from Malaysia. And they go, oh, but it's rubbish. Look at the panel alignment. And I'm just like, oh, I just thought that was your terrible panel alignment. They're like, man, you can't get any better. So they put straight edges along things and show me that these guards and the bonnets and the beaver panels and all that, they're all reproduction out of Malaysia, and they're terrible quality.
Yeah.
But they're reproducing the parts. So these guys are going out drifting these little KEs, crashing them, and then they're fixing them. And I'm like, how are these guys still getting parts for these? Then when I ask them, I'm like, man, where are you finding these parts? Surely you can't just have a stash of 60 guards. And they're like, no, just buy them out of Malaysia. And then you show the price, and it's like, don't quote me on this, anyone, but I think it was like $150 a guard for a KE70.
Wow.
And they were the quad headlight front ones.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's ridiculously cheap.
Yeah.
And when they come, they're by no means perfect. They're not perfect. Like all the, the edges are sharp, and the folds are, the folds, like the shapes aren't perfect, but it's something to work with.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
and for what it is, like
for that sort of money,
if you're not building a show car, it's a drift car, and you're expecting to, be rough with it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Absolutely perfect, man.
Yeah.
You save some cash. Car looks decent from like, what's the saying? Looks good from far, but far from good.
Yeah.
So
hold on, put this on pause.
Yeah. So I think that'd be it for today, guys. So if you agree with us or if you disagree, we definitely want to know what you think in the comments. Let's start a discussion in the comments, because everyone has their opinion. You might think of something that we completely missed. So
and tell us if you're getting one. I want to know if someone's going to get one.
Or even if you've seen, like maybe if you're in China and you've seen them, and you can tell me if they're any good condition or like good quality.
Yeah, what's the quality like? What are the panel gaps like? Because like you say, that one that was on the video, the photos,
it looks pretty good to me.
The panels didn't look too bad, really.
Yeah, it looked good to me. I reckon they look good. But then you don't know until you see it. And you don't really know. So yeah, definitely that's the biggest one. We want to know what you guys think in the comments. We do read all the comments, and stay tuned, because today we're actually going to pick up Matt's car ready for drag challenge. So stay tuned for another drag challenge update. So thanks, guys.